Well, going back to junior high, elementary school, high school, I grew up in Southern Virginia, and I grew up, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you're from the DMV, huh?" And I'm like, not quite. The DMV is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but that part of Virginia they consider Northern Virginia part of DC, and it is. It's literally 15 to 20 minutes outside of DC, and you're in Northern Virginia. But I grew up down south, which is about 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours south of here, and pretty close to the North Carolina line. So, being that I was so close to the North Carolina line, I actually grew up a Carolina fan. Partly because of my high school coach, who was from North Carolina, and we actually ran UNC's system in high school. Our coach would routinely take us down to watch Dean Smith in Carolina practices, and I was actually at the practice. One of my, many stories that I tell along about my basketball journey. I was actually at the practice when Michael Jordan broke his hand his freshman year,
Wow.
at that practice. And, we were all disappointed because he did it like not even 25, minutes into practice. He broke his hand because, we were looking forward to seeing him do some dunks. And I was impressed with the likes of Sam Perkins and James Worthy. And of course, a lot of admiration and respect for Dean Smith, even back then. We recognized his greatness as high schoolers. And so this is probably in ninth, 10th grade. And then along, my 10th grade year, along comes this guy named Len Bias, who I had never seen anything like. 6'8", 40-inch vertical, one of the most graceful athletes you'd ever seen, explosive, strong around the basket. And he wasn't a center, he was a forward. And so for me, at that time, being young and looking at guys like James Worthy and Michael Jordan and Dr. J being my my all-time idol at that time. Like, he was the guy. Like, I idolized Dr. J. That's really who I wanted to be, as an eighth, ninth grader. And so around the 10th, 11th grade, like I said, I see this guy named Len Bias at the University of Maryland. And then they win the ACC. And at that time, Jefferson Pilot Sports, Raycom Sports was like where you saw all the ACC games. And at that time, the ACC was clearly the best college basketball conference in the country. And Len Bias was one of the most dominant players in that conference, even as a sophomore and junior. So I was enamored by his game and drawn to him because I said, that's what I want to be as a player. I want to be a forward that can play inside, that can shoot jump shots, and be athletic and play well in transition. And so I actually got recruited by the University of Maryland my junior year, and was at five-star basketball camp, which is like the biggest basketball camp. Still is, I think, to this maybe still is to this day. I don't know if they've been taken over by like Nike or Under Armour, those places. But at that time, five-star was where all the top high schoolers were. And so I went there as a little, kid straight out of the country. Nobody really knew me, no internet or anything like that. So, word traveled slow about players. And I made a good showing and caught the attention of Sherman Dillard, an assistant coach for the University of Maryland, who would later introduce me to Lefty Driesell, and which was a huge moment for me at five-star when I was actually able to meet Lefty and shake his hand and have him tell me he was interested in having me come to the University of Maryland.